Press the button, my friend.
The Out of Bounds Show is live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge in the Bank Plus studio.
Check it out.
And good morning. Welcome in. We are the Out of Bounds Show. You can watch it right now. The show on YouTube. Search Out of Bounds Sports. This is 105.9 The Zone. ESPN. We're also streaming live on thezone1059.com. Our interview is brought to you by Bulldog Burger in Ridgeland, Bulldog Burger in Starkville, and Bulldog Burger in Tupelo. They've rolled out a new menu, and here's one of the items: a Mississippi barbecue burger, pulled pork, barbecue sauce, pepper jack cheese, jalapenos, and crispy onions, powered by Bulldog Burger. We welcome in head football coach, Mississippi State. He is Zach Arnett in his first spring as a head coach, fourth spring on campus, and he joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Zach Arnett, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. How are you? Kind of got me a little hungry listening to that ad for Bulldog Burger there.
Well, I know we were talking about that earlier.
Nice low-cal light lunch.
The low-cal. All right, so over the weekend it was National Tater Day, and we were talking about guys that are meat and taters, meat and three. Do you like a good meat and three?
I do. Yeah, I do. I'm trying to lay off them a little bit. You become the head coach, you make the rounds, doing different booster events. It's really easy to pack on the calories, so kind of spring cleaning of the diet right now.
I like it. Before we get into your roster, I'd like to talk about Emmanuel Forbes. And you got to coach him, see him develop, get better. He was a huge playmaker, ball hawk, did some amazing things when the ball was in the air. And now there's talk late first round, early mid-second round. He's going early either way. What were you so impressed about the jump that he made freshman, sophomore, junior year, Coach?
Well, I just think, he really showed up right at the beginning of August, and it might have been a little later because of, that was the COVID year. So maybe but he really showed up at the start of fall camp. And then true freshman year, playing a 10-game all-SEC schedule. He got in that first game, that victory at LSU. And I think after that, he started every game since in his career. I've never been around a guy with better ball skills at DB, the ability to locate, find the ball in the air, play it as if he were the receiver. And then usually when he got his hands on it, he always caught it. And most of the time he made something special happen with it after the catch. He got more interception return for touchdowns than probably any guy in football history, college football history. And so I think you can overanalyze a lot of things. I know that there's talk about there, how did his weight transition, NFL, all that BS. I mean, same things could be said when he made the jump from high school to college. The fact of the matter is, guy's a playmaker. He's done it in the best league in all of football. He's going to continue to do it at the next level, in the highest level of the game. He's going to be a star for years to come.
Well, things are trending well for him, that's for sure. Zach Arnett on the Out of Bounds Show. Okay, so y'all are grinding your way through spring practice, and you've got a new offense, and you're going to run the defense that you and Matt Brock are going to run the defense that y'all been running. And it's going to take a while. So I wonder what your expectations are by the end of spring practice. Like, hey, I want this thing perfect, or is it more of by August 15th, another 8 to 10 practices into August, this is when they're really going to get it down and clicking on all cylinders? How is the install going on the new offense, Coach?
Well, I mean, again, are we going to be a polished, perfect product by the end of the spring game in all of the schemes we would like to execute? Of course not. But when you come to passing offense, okay, whether it's air raid schemes being run from 4 wide receivers, everyone in football is running the same concepts in the pass game. And so while it might be called something different, your landmarks might be slightly different with where you want the routes to end up. What is 95 in the air raid, or what was known as the Y cross play, right? It's just called a different name in our offense. And so I think some of that stuff is overblown, particularly when it comes to pass game. And then obviously in the run game, you have different schemes you like to execute: inside zone, outside zone, gap schemes. We're obviously installing those and getting better on a daily basis. But I think you would like to get out of spring practice with your players comfortable in the bread and butter of, all right, these are the formations, shifts, motions, and then the schemes we are going to employ throughout the season, both run and pass. And I think we got a really good jump on that. We just had our first scrimmage this last Saturday, and we kind of had a program-wide rule. There was to be zero coaching from the sidelines, right? If you had a guy miss a line, you could not yell something out to try to help him get lined up, or we wanted to evaluate, all right, where are we as players and where are we as coaches, how we've done coaching and implementing the schemes. And for the most part, we were able to line up and execute and play football on both sides of the ball. Was it the prettiest? By no means was it. It's the first scrimmage, but it's not like we were a mess out there without coaches yelling and getting guys lined up or knowing what to do.
Okay, so how would you grade the first? Once you got to go back and look at the tape Saturday or Sunday morning, whenever, how would you grade your first scrimmage?
I think it's probably like most of them. It's like everything in spring, right? You're happy with some plays on both sides of the ball, and you're disgusted with plays on both sides of the ball. And so a certain drill, we did a situational scrimmage. It might be, all right, it's coming off the goal line. Offense is trying to get a first down, so you punch it off the goal line. Then he might go, all right, now it's first and goal. So within each drill, either the offense or the defense got the better of the other side of the ball, and usually it's about split 50-50, but it's kind of that old coaching motto of it's never as good as you think, never as bad as you think. And so thought the effort was there. We certainly can execute a lot better on both sides of the ball, but that's why you got spring practice. And that's why you got 3 live scrimmages you're allowed to do.
Sure.
So we'll see if we're better this coming Saturday.
He is Zach Arnett on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line, head football coach at Mississippi State, and they're marching through spring practice. Give me a couple of guys that really showed out Saturday.
I think, starting on offense, obviously Will's always reliable. I think he was probably he's got a few throws he'd like to have back, but Tulu got the ball in his hands a few times in some different ways, and he was about as dynamic as anyone in the program with the ball in his hands. He took a little screen from about 60 for a touchdown in it. Woody Marks obviously continues to be the premier tailback, creating carries for him. And then our offense did a nice job of coming off the ball and creating some movement. At receiver, I already mentioned Tulu, but Justin Robinson did some nice things. Just the physical stature he has, the ability to win one-on-ones and also show up in the rushing attack and getting his body on safeties or DBs and usually win that point of attack. That's been nice to see. And then we got some tight ends coming along too. Maybe no individual specific plays, but Ja'Karius Clayton is working at tight end right now. His body is completely transformed since being here. I think he's got about as bright a future as anyone in terms of his ceiling at the position he's playing. He could be a special one in that group. And then on defense, you're limiting some reps for the guys who we know are proven guys. So obviously, Buki, DCAM, Crumity, Pick, those guys were their typical reliable selves. But some guys made some individual really good plays. Marcus Banks kind of jumped off the film for me. We got him playing in kind of your field safety slot, nickel corner, all the different names for it. He did some really nice things. Kamari Rogers had a nice interception down on the goal line, ability to go up, find the ball, kind of tracked it, went up and got it like Forbes. We talked about him earlier. And then those are the guys to me that kind of stood out. Deshaun Page did some really nice things. Linebackers are getting more reps right now because Jet Johnson is shut down this spring. And so we're coming along, but we need some more guys to make some bigger strides.
What about Zach Arnett on the Out of Bounds show? Let's go back to Justin Robinson. I mean, this guy, he's big, athletic, he's got the wingspan. Mississippi State hasn't had that many type players. If he does what he needs to do, what y'all want him to do, getting better and all the different things, what could his season look like in 2023, considering his athleticism and size, Coach?
Yeah, I think a lot of that obviously also depends on how effective we are doing all the things we'd like to do, and so that it dictates the way the defense has to play, right? I mean, if they're able to stay and play cover two a whole bunch and you can't run the football, well, then you ain't going to have very many receivers with a whole lot of production because they're playing a softer coverage and playing more pass, and you ain't making the defense pay. If you can get them into having to get more hats around the box and create more one-on-ones outside for your playmakers, well, then obviously you would expect them to have a more productive season from terms of yards receiving-wise. I just like the way he's approached his work every day. I mean, obviously, he should be a matchup problem for defense because he runs well enough. You want to cover him with a corner, and yet he's so big and physical. There's not an abundance of corners out there that you would say are great matchups, but he's a mismatch typically on safeties and obviously on linebackers. But he's big enough and strong enough to come into the box and dig out a safety and run support. And so, I mean, there's a reason he was a big-time recruit coming out of high school. He went to Georgia out of high school. They typically recruit pretty good players with pretty high recruiting profiles there at that school. And so we're definitely excited for his future, and he should be a big part of our offense.
Let's go to the defensive side of the football. Two guys that our listeners are wanting to know about, Mississippi kids who were highly recruited. In fact, I think you could make a strong argument. Both of them were the best players in their classes, even though they weren't, or Travion may have been. But let's start with John Lewis and Travion Williams. Let's start with John Lewis. I know he went through some injuries last year. How is he progressing, Zach?
John's doing exactly what we need from him. Obviously, he's in a battle right now for the starting Sam position. We got to replace Tyrus Wheat, so his name will be called in the draft too. So we got to replace a heck of a football player, but John is in that mix. He's splitting the number one reps, and obviously he's flashing all the athleticism and toughness and explosiveness that you saw on film in the recruiting process, and he's getting more comfortable with the schemes and assignments because we do have quite a few assignments at that position because you kind of got to be able to play as both a linebacker and a defensive lineman at times. So we're loving the way he's progressing, but I tell you what, you can guarantee he's going to be moving 100 miles per hour on the field. He's got to make sure he's always moving 100 miles per hour in the right direction. But he's doing a great job up to this point through first 8 practices. And then Travion, I failed to mention him in the earlier question, but he's probably flashed as much or more than anyone on the defensive side of the ball, just from a ability standpoint. It's almost the same argument with John. Now, John's a year older, but Travion's just getting more and more comfortable with the different alignments and assignments that are part of the defensive scheme. But, I mean, he has the ability to do anything and everything from an assignment schematic point that we ask of him. He's a special blend of athleticism, size, strength, explosiveness. Could not be more excited for his future. He's going to continue the legacy of D linemen that this university produces.
All right, so you got Crumity coming back, who's a veteran and proved his worth in the last, whatever it was, 3 games or 4 games of the season. And for y'all to get him back is incredible because he's a legit dude. But who's a bigger game wrecker, Crumity or Williams, or is it Crumity just because he's got several years on Travion?
Yeah, I just think, you got to go with proven, obviously, right? Crumity's got proven film disrupting, destroying games on Saturdays in the fall in this league. We have every reason to believe Travion is going to be just as disruptive. And so I'm really excited about the combination of them both on the field together. That's really the big point. It just goes to further our recruiting philosophy here. I mean, I don't think there's a state better at producing NFL defensive line talent than this one, and the fact that we get to evaluate them here, recruit them here harder than anywhere else. And that's what this program is built on. So that's going to continue to be our emphasis, is building this thing in state, because the best players in Mississippi need to keep coming to Mississippi State. And I will say this, now Crumity obviously was probably our best recruiting effort, getting him back here this last year. I will say he strategically scheduled a wedding here coming actually this week. So he's missing several practices, and you kind of want to give him a hard time. Hey, you can't be scheduling a wedding during spring practice, but you have him back, so I'm not going to criticize him too much.
No, he's a hell of a football player. All right, speaking of recruiting, I know you can't name any names, but how do you think with the 10 guy? Well, you got all the in-house guys, staff as a whole. How do you think recruiting's going right now in early April for y'all?
I mean, I'm not allowed to obviously comment on any specific individuals, prospects, players. So I'm kind of at a loss for words, but I think we are doing exactly what we talked about, when the staff was hired. We're going to, between the in-state kids and the footprint of, if you drive, 250, 300-mile circle around this campus, that's the recruiting footprint. And we aim to evaluate the kids in that footprint, develop relationships, and recruit them harder than any school in the country. And when this roster is loaded with the young men that hail from that footprint, that's when this program's at its best, wins the most games. And so that's what we are set out to do. And we're not about hype and flash talk and all that necessarily. We just go about our work, and I have every reason to believe that the proof will be in the pudding come signing day.
Let's go to Percy Lewis, big-time JUCO offensive tackle. He's now in his second year. How is he progressing?
He's doing well. I apologize for not bringing him up earlier when you had talked about offensive guys who have flashed. Big Purse he's doing a nice job picking up on all the different schemes. He's got a rare combination of size and athleticism. And so, we constantly talk about it, but as an offensive lineman particularly, there's a famous saying, there's maybe no more satisfying feeling in the world than moving another man against his will, right? That is the definition of offensive line, particularly in the run game. And so Big Percy's coming to really enjoy that. Big man like himself can get his feet in and out of cleats and out of the ground. The joy of picking up another human being, a D lineman or a linebacker, and physically imposing your will on him and moving him against his will is no better feeling as offensive lineman. So I enjoy seeing it on a daily basis.
We'll leave it there, and hopefully we'll get Zach Arnett in a few weeks after they wrap up spring practice. Head football coach at Mississippi State, first spring as the head coach, fourth on the Starkville, Mississippi campus. Zach Arnett, we appreciate it. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you. We'll see you on April 15th, Super Bulldog weekend. Hail State.
Zach Arnett on the Out of Bounds Show and the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. That interview brought to you by Bulldog Burger in Ridgeland, Starkville, and Tupelo. And Blake, they rolled out a new menu at Bulldog Burger. And how about this? The chicken bacon ranch sliders, fried chicken, Monterey Jack cheese, lettuce, ranch aioli, and candied bacon is presented by Bulldog Burger in Ridgeland. That was Zach Arnett, and he likes what's happening with John Lewis and Travion Williams. Those were two highly rated guys that you had to fight multiple SEC schools for. And we've talked about kind of the this is a program that went through a long stretch of time where they had game wreckers, and they haven't. So Zach, some of it's not his deal. He didn't walk into what Joe Moorhead walked into. Or even, Fletcher Cox was already committed to Mississippi State. Dan Mullen had to keep his commitment. But that was kind of the guy that started. I know, McPhee and some of those other dudes, KJ Wright, were amazing players too. But you went Fletcher, Chris Jones, and Jeffrey Simmons with a bunch of other Pernell McPhee and others, Montez Sweat and all those. I don't think Zach Arnett has coached a talent like that since he's been at Mississippi State. Not that he hasn't had some good players. Now I think that they have a chance to be, really good on defense with Crumity, Travion Williams, John Lewis. He talks about the guys coming back. Jet Johnson doesn't need to practice in the spring. They know what he's got. And Bookie Watson, I would think you'd limit a lot of those guys, and Cam and so on. But now it does give Deshaun Page an opportunity to get more reps. He's like super athletic. So there you go. Who's going to take Tyler Sweet's place? John Lewis is in the mix. He's from Germantown right here. And Travion Williams not but 20 minutes down the road in Crystal Springs. I still think one of the big keys is Justin Robinson and what he could be. He looks like an NFL player. We talked about how good Jonathan Mingo looks in a uniform coming off the bus. Had a nice career, but you wanted more, right? There's been some other guys that have come through Starkville and Oxford where you're like, man, he was a solid plus player and every now and then good, but damn, I wanted more.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably it for Justin Robinson, and he's a monster. I mean, I walked down after that ReliaQuest Bowl in Illinois. I walked down to the locker room, and he happened to be standing out there. So I went up and talked to him. He's a man.
Yeah. He's listed 6'4", 220.
Every bit.
Who were you more acutely aware that you were tiny compared to, him or Tolu Smith when you saw him at the why can't I say it? Not Connerly, but what's the award that Howell Grissom Awards?
Justin Robinson.
Because he's thicker.
He is.
Tolu's still thin.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, he's well built, but you're right. Yeah. So Justin Robinson, I thought he was a little skinnier than he's not.
Pretty thick.
And I figure, that was 3 months ago. It's another 4 or 5 months away from Labor Day when the Dogs and the Rebs get going. I just think he's got to be a guy that really takes that next step.
Well, he's your best plan of attack offensively. That is on the I mean, I guess
other than Tolu.
Yeah, but in a totally different way.
Sure, and either way's great.
Yes, but I think if Justin Robinson isn't your best receiver, you didn't have the best offense you could have.
Oh.
If Tulu Griffin's your best receiver, you didn't hit your peak.
I disagree with that, but I see, I don't care how you do it. It doesn't matter to me. And I don't think I want to say that in any kind of absolute way because you're just looking for explosive plays from either one of them.
Correct.
Now, is Justin a different animal in the red zone? Yes, but Tulu's a different animal from the 45-yard line. So I think those are two great guys to have. One's tiny but built he's built, and the other one's 6'5" with the wingspan of a power forward. Ole Miss, Bama, LSU, Georgia have had those type players. You now have one. What are you going to do with him?
Mm-hmm.
And he saved the day. There were several, but he saved the day in the bowl game because he was able to go up and get a pass that wasn't perfect.
Yep.
And bring it in and you score. Zach Arnett's fired up.
Well, wouldn't you be?
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably ahead of schedule in terms of his career path, if we're being honest.
There's no question. Because I think he thought, hey, if I can get a job like Troy, Southern Miss, Texas State, these are good jobs, by the way. Lafayette, the ULL, those type programs.
Absolutely.
Georgia Southern.
La Tech, kind of thing, yeah.
Places, schools that can get athletes and can kick your ass on, a Saturday.
Good 8-4 CUSA team, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
10-2. Those programs are willing to go. I think he thought that was the deal. Something tragically played out.
That's how it always happens.
But he put himself in the right. He had impressed people on campus from day one, and so he put himself in position to be successful. And then he got the gig, and he was able to re-recruit a ton of players on that roster, which I don't think people even comprehend how much re-recruiting was done by Zach Arnett and the Bulldog Initiative to keep those players. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by the Premium Cigars at Havana Smoke Shop in Jackson and Havana Smoke Shop at the Reservoir.